Before we talk about self-defense weapons, I just want to remind you that when it comes down to something on this table, this is your last-ditch effort. If you haven't seen our other self-defense videos, I'll put a link up here above me. That way you can go back and take a look at how to de-escalate and maybe recognize and avoid the situation before it comes down to using something on this table. All the items on this table are self-defense tools. We're going to start by talking about the self-defense tools that are meant specifically for killing. And the first one I'll talk about is the handgun. So this is a .357. It's not the highest caliber of handguns, but it's something that I purchased because I go hiking a lot and I have dogs. They're basically meat on the end of a string. So I wanted something that was quick and easily deployed when I needed it, easy to carry with me, and would definitely deter any predator that might be looking after me or my dogs. But again, the thing about this, it doesn't really have any other purpose. I'm not going to use this to hammer in nails or build a shelter. The only thing this is used for is for killing. Now, in some states, you're actually legally allowed to carry a sword around with you as long as it's not concealed. This also was meant to kill. That's not a knife. You're not going to take this out into the bush and gut an animal with it or pry at a rock with it. This thing was made to decapitate, remove limbs. Problem with these types of weapons, and even the knife is a tool. You could use this in various survival situations or even in various everyday applications. But if you were to use any of these in a self-defense, their lawyer might be able to prove that you premeditated, bought these to use to harm another human. And as soon as they can prove that premeditation, you're in a different type of trouble than you were to begin with. There are other self-defense tools like tasers or this extendable baton. These people get all the time and they carry with them for self-defense. And I would argue that especially if you know martial arts, this could be a very effective self-defense tool. Problem again though comes in when their lawyer says, did you buy that taser or did you buy that baton to use to harm another person? And obviously there's no other reason why I bought this but to use it for self-defense. The next one is going to be this walking cane. Now this isn't a normal walking cane. If I was to show this to you, you would see it's definitely for self-defense. If you had a typical walking cane that you would buy at a Walgreens that's very inconspicuous as a weapon, then it would be hard to prove that you bought that to hurt somebody. However, a cane like this, yeah, you probably bought this to hurt somebody. The problem with the tools in the front half of this table is that they are all weapons and they look like weapons. There's no mistaking it for anything else. As soon as I introduce this in a self-defense situation, there's a very real chance my opponent can get a hold of it as well. Police officers have to worry about that all the time. So once I introduce this weapon, it's not my weapon, it's our weapon, and I have to treat that accordingly. That's where improvising a weapon becomes a little bit more advantageous. Now, obviously, if I take this pen and I hold it up above my head like this, it looks like I'm obviously carrying a weapon. But there's a way that you can just casually talk with this pen, but the way I'm holding it right now, I can easily use that as a weapon. Or like this cell phone that I could be talking on right when the altercation's happening, and then I just hold it a little bit different way. Right at my side. This looks very non-threatening, and at any moment I can reach out and strike with that. And it's a very strong surface, so what if I break my cell phone? This thing could save my life. And I think the lawyer is going to have a very hard time convincing a jury that you bought this cell phone specifically for the intent purpose of bashing somebody's face in. I'd also be willing to bet that they wouldn't be able to prove that you bought this teacup to harm another human. But all of these could be very effective in a self-defense situation. Remote control, held in the same way. You're putting it in the palm, gripping your fingers around it so that when you strike, it's striking into your hand and it's not going to try to slip. It's very effective, especially if you're taking something like that and just holding it at your side very nonchalantly, and then you can just strike with it at any moment. And you have a musical weapon tied into it. And that's exactly how I was holding that pen earlier. I wasn't holding it like it's a knife. I was just casually holding it in that same way. right in the center of my palm, so that as soon as I cut my fingers around it, it's nicely nestled and it's backed up by the strength of my wrist and arm. Now, if you go back to our previous videos and you look at the critical striking areas and the self-defense combos, anything you're doing with your hands, you can improvise one of these tools and it's just going to maximize the force. Going back to this knife. You know, if I'm carrying this knife on me and I need to use it in self-defense and I bring the blade out, that's premeditation. I brought that blade out because I wanted to hurt somebody. But if I instead reinforced it in my hand and held it with my thumb and now used my hammer fist, I premeditated not to use the deadly part of the blade. That could get me out of trouble and prove that it was self-defense and that I did not intend to kill the person. When you're using an improvised weapon like a remote control or a cell phone, you want to place that right in the center of your palm. There's a nice little pocket right here that it sits in. It's going to be reinforced by your hand and your wrist, just like you would use a palm strike. My fingers are going to wrap around it to secure it, and then when I strike with it, it's being used right into the heel of my palm. For something like a teacup, it's held in the same way. It's being held in the palm, wrap the fingers around it, and it could be held either way, really. I could strike with it that way, or I could strike with it that way. I kind of like using it this way. There's less surface area. If it does break, it's likely going to be this side that breaks, which means it's going to go into my opponent. But either way, something that's ceramic could easily break and now become an injury to myself. So I do have to be cautious of that. However, nothing else at hand, this can be a very effective self-defense tool. Just like with this water bottle. This is nice and heavy, especially when it's filled with water. I could hold it this way and try to strike with it, but it looks like I'm holding a weapon. But if I'm holding it here, holding it my side, very easy. I've got this nice point right there that can actually penetrate into the abdomen, soft target areas, as well as hard target areas can be used there. When it becomes time to defend yourself and you have to use a tool, that tool is only going to be effective if you know how to use it. How many times have you gotten out on the range to shoot that gun? How many times have you used that extendable baton against a real resisting target like a heavy bag? Have you ever fired that taser before, or have you even shot that pepper spray? Do you know how it works and how long of a range it is? Take your improvised tool, put it in your hand, have a target you hit with a couple times. Be experienced at it and know what the impact feels like. And then ultimately, the tool that you choose, you know, here in Oregon, guns are pretty popular, and the common thing is, oh, I would just shoot the guy if he's breaking into my house. And I always ask, really? You would shoot the guy? I don't know a lot of people that would actually willingly pull a trigger and kill somebody. It takes a special offset that you have to turn on in your mind. And there's a lot of people that don't come back from that. People in the military go to train that type of thing, and they come under fire and they find that it's very difficult to pull that trigger. Bottom line, I would say, is that your most effective self-defense tool is your unarmed training. These are all just here to enhance. They're force multipliers. They're to give extra strength to what you already know. If it comes down to a self-defense situation and you freeze up, it doesn't matter if that's a .357 Magnum or a .50 caliber handgun. If you freeze up, it doesn't matter if you've got that extendable baton or that taser. You need to know how to confidently move your body and use it with the resisting opponent. Then you'll know you can confidently use any of these items.